and therefore it is not a usurpation of authority if the spiritual prelate interfere in temporal things concerning those matters in which the secular power is subject to him. So everybody is subject to Rome. The Council of Trent declared all temporal power is his. The dominion, the jurisdiction, and the government of the whole earth is his by divine right. All rulers of the earth are his subject and must submit to him. That was the Council of Trent. That's the one that ended the attack of the Reformation. Here we have a lady who said, Jesus said, I am the good shepherd, and this lady said, it's like being with God, when she saw John Paul II. Did she wear out the saints? It was given him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Well, again, Thomas Aquinas said that convicted heretics should be put to death just as surely as other criminals. The Catholic Church is a respecter of conscience and of liberty. Nevertheless, when confronted with heresy, she has recourse to force, to corporal punishment, to torture. She lit in Italy the funeral piles of the Inquisition. Catholic professor Alfred Budrat, the Catholic Church, Renaissance Protestantism. Yes, she admits it. Here is the Chiesa del Gesù, which is the seat of the Jesuits. Here is the Jesuit oath that is made, which basically says that they can get rid of any heretical king in the entire world, any commonwealth of governments that does not want to subject itself to the papacy, and anybody who does not submit to the authority of the Roman pontiff can be safely destroyed. So the church ruled as the woman ruling over kings. That is how she depicted herself throughout history. The Inquisition, well, the Inquisition tells us that she wore out the saints, the Tower of London, the Hague in the Netherlands. What is the definition of heresy? Greek, heresis, choice, deciding for oneself what one shall believe and practice. That's heresy. So who must decide for you? Rome must decide for you what you must believe. And if you do not fall in line with this, well, then you must be eliminated. You must be eradicated. Well, we are heading for some thunderous times in the world that we live in today. These are some of the instruments of torture that they used. These were terrible things. These tongs over here were opened up and they could close like two little buckets, making a little ball. They would put hot coals in there and then sort you out that way. They would put these shackles around you. These were put around the feet. Notice the pins on the inside. They would go right into the bone. They were so wicked. This one over here went around the neck, and then they would tighten the screw, and of course it would push right here into your Adam's apple. And in fact, General Franco, in the 1970s in Spain, still used that instrument of torture. Can you believe that? How primitive can you get? And the stocks, and the thumb screws, and this terrible thing over here, where they would hoist you upside down with your hands behind your back and lift you up this way, high above, and hang you from a ceiling, and then they'd attach this ball on a high shelf, this heavy stone, to your feet, roll it down, and rip your arms right out. That was pretty mean, the way they did. These are representations of the pyres, the stakes of the Inquisition, and they killed literally millions and millions of people. This is the famous Huguenot monument in Africa, where the French Huguenots escaped, and after the great massacre, where the Huguenots were massacred, Bartholomew Massacre, and they depicted themselves as a woman in a church escaping with a Bible in her hand and the chains of Rome torn loose. Well, I have news for you. This woman is once again chained. And every other woman on the planet, talking of churches, is once again chained. Changes times and laws. Think to change times and laws. Daniel 7:25. Does the Pope claim that he changed God's law? Absolutely. Decretal, de translat, episcop. The Pope has power to change times, to abrogate laws, and to dispense with all things, even the precepts of Christ. That's arrogance of the highest order. So they say that they can change these things. Did the papacy change the times? Certainly did. What calendar are we keeping in the world today? Who knows? We're keeping the Gregorian calendar. Who was Gregory? He was a pope. And were the times changed? Yes. On the authority of whom? Of the Jesuit astronomers. What did they change? They changed Easter. They brought the Easter feasts to bring them in line with the feast of Ishtar. They even called it that. Easter, Ishtar. Easter feast. And so, whereas the Pasch was celebrated according to the new moon, and the Passover could take place on any day of the week, depending on when the new moon was sighted, so the papacy changed it and followed the symbolism of the Sadducees, who were trained in Alexandria in occult teaching, and moved it in line with the feast of Ishtar. And now Easter falls only on a Sunday and never coincides with the Passover. It is possible with the calendar that they have that at some stage in history it can actually coincide with the Passover. And what does the papacy then decree? If there happens to be a lining up of the Passover with the feast of Ishtar, then the papacy shifts Easter 1 week so that it'll still fall on the Sunday. So she changed the times and the feasts, definitely. Also, since these times, we are celebrating the day from midnight to midnight and not from sunset to sunset. And then did she abrogate the laws and dispense with the things and the precepts of Christ? The Pope can modify divine law, prompta bibliotheca. Who gives you the right, Mr. Pope, to change the law of God? The Ten Commandments, as originally given by God on the first tablet, you shall have no other gods before me. Then there is this big commandment that you shall not bow down to idols. And then you may not take the name of the Lord your vain. The Sabbath commandment is very prominent. And then you have the commandments dictating the relationship between man and man. Honor your father and your mother, shalt not kill, adultery, theft, thou shalt not bring false witness, and covetousness. Those are the commandments as they are in the Bible. If you take the Catholic Catechism, you'll see that the second commandment has been removed. You shall not have other gods. He shall be able to change laws, of course, he says. I am the Lord of God. You shall have no strange gods before me. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. So the second commandment is gone. This one has moved one up. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. But what have they done to that? We'll see about that in a moment. And so they only have 9 commandments, and to get 10, they take the commandment on coveting and split it into 2. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods. Very fascinating. Remember that this one over here says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. So they turn it round. Isn't that fascinating? They even have the gall to turn it round, as if they had the right to do that. The Catholic Encyclopedia says, the Church, after changing the day of rest from the Jewish Sabbath, or the 7th day of the week, to the 1st, made the 3rd commandment refer to Sunday, because the second one was gone now, as the day to be kept holy as the Lord's Day, Catholic Encyclopedia. So they changed the times. Even the day of worship, which was the 7th day, was shifted to the 1st day of the week. Matthew 5:17 says, think not that I came to destroy the law and the prophets. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill, to live them out. Here's the Convert's Catechism of the Catholic Doctrine, page 50, and it says, question, which is the Sabbath day? Answer, Saturday is the Sabbath day. Catholic Church is well aware of it, they know it. Question, why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer, we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church in the Council of Laodicea, transferred the solemnity from the Saturday to the Sunday. So did she change times and laws? Yes or no? Yes, she did. Times, and half a time. What does that refer to? The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. If you have a modern Bible, it'll say 3.5 years. Now, prophetic years are different to normal years. A year, in a prophetic sense, had 360 days because the Hebrew year had 360 days. So, 360, 2 times, 720, half a time, half a year, 180. Add them all up, that would give you 1,260 prophetic days. Now, that becomes 1,260 literal years. Let's just sort this out. With the conquest of Rome by Belisarius, commences the history of the Middle Ages. So when Rome was conquered and the Ostrogoths were removed, the history of the Middle Ages started. Philip Shape says, Vigilus ascended the papal chair 538 AD under the military protection of Belisarius. So when did the little horn power assume its authority? The answer is 538 AD, because the last of the little horns, or of the horn powers that kept him back were the Ostrogoths. They were removed in 538 AD, and Vigilus ascends the papal chair. So the dominance of Rome begins. Another shall arise after them, the 10 kingdoms, established AD 476. After them, AD 538, papal rule commences. According to a decree which was issued by Justinian, Emperor of Rome, who said that the Pope will be the corrector of heretics and the ruler of all the churches. Now, 538, if you add 1,260, you come to 1,798, 1798. What happened in 1798? Berthier entered Rome on the 10th of February, 1798, and proclaimed a republic. Half of Europe thought Napoleon's veto would be obeyed, and that with the Pope, the papacy was dead. So exactly according to prophetic time, and the Bible tells us to take a day for a year, exactly according to that time, when the clock struck 1798, the temporal power of the papacy was halted for a while. So 1,260-year time prophecy. 476 AD, the 10 kingdoms are established. 538 AD, the bishop officially recognized as the ruler of all the churches. 1,260 years of time prophecy brings us to 1798, fulfilled. His domain and dominion ended. 1,260 years, it was based on 1,260 days, which is the same as 3.5 prophetic years, but it's also the same as 42 months. 42 times 30, that was the biblical month. 42 times 30 is also 1,260. Now in Revelation 12, verse 6, we read, 1,203 score days. That's 1,260 days. In Revelation 12:14, a time, times, and half a time. See how Revelation